Hello and welcome to ScreenHour with me, Mikey.
And me, Kieran.
Where we discuss the latest releases of films, series and game regarding our own impressions and experiences. We warn you before deep diving spoilers. This week, we are going to be doing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And it's going to be more of a convince me episode because Kieran hasn't seen it. I'm fresh from seeing it. Oh, relatively fresh. I saw it 2 nights ago.
I want to see it, but I'm just too busy at the moment. I've got a lot on, so I haven't had an opportunity to do so.
I'll start off by saying what I'm really happy with is that it's got the theatrical love, and it's got the budget like it should have, and that's because the first one, what is great, and it was great, but it was like a bit of a sleeper hit. In the cinemas, in box office, it just done all right. Where when it came to streaming, like people were watching it like twice, like as soon as it came out on streaming, and like the love for it just went like really well for it, and it just between that and the year after, Miles Morales as a character like exploded because he featured in like Spider-Man, like the PlayStation 4 game, as a supporting character, and then obviously in 2020, with like in the November with the release of his game on PlayStation 5, him like was everywhere, and he was like smart, well written in both, but obviously more in particular the first film, and everything like, and I said this like. On the Star Wars sequel, we reviewed the game recently, which was Jedi
Survivor.
Every element you'd liked from the first film or the first game, in this case film, is just turned up to the max. Whether it will be the soundtrack, whether it will be Miles growing as a character, or whether it will be the other 101 Spider-Men or women or spider animals which come across the film, all the new characters which are introduced, which are so different and such a contrast to each other but also complement each other in this new film. And this is probably one of my favourite things about it, and anybody who's watched the first one would agree, the art style is like stunning. The art style is stunning, but also clashes, not clashes because that's kind of a bad word. It's like such a good contrast to like
Juxtapose.
At the same time, like juxtapose, but like you'll have like certain like Spider-Men from one Spider-Verse be in the same frame and shot as another Spider-Man or Spider-Person, shall we say, and they will look. It's a totally different design, but like it doesn't throw you off. It only complements it.
So it's got like that proper comic book effect where it sort of like splits it in half sort of thing? Or is it not so much like a strong, solid line? It's just like the world that they see is slightly different. The world that they touch is slightly different.
No, just their imposed type of thing. So to give you some type of idea, there's just like a normalish spider world in like near the start with Gwen Stacy. And one of the villains who she's fighting, is just like a normal, quite polished animation world. It's not mega realistic, but it looks like normal and it looks beautiful. And the villain she fights, he's like a Renaissance painting, like a Leonardo da Vinci. Like, do you know the wolf and the man painting? It's like that. It's like proper sketch drawing, and she's fighting him in like her normal world.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And then, for instance, there's also Spider-Punk. Is his design, the typical like punk albums, as in like the Clash and the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
You know, the big like colourful writing, and it's different letters. And you know, like in the old school thriller films, when they'd write a ransom note, it'll be cut out of magazine clippings.
Yeah.
That's the type of like mad, like punkish design Spider-Punk's got. And then Miles' design is just sleek Miles, like, you know, he's got his new costume. his new outfit. He's still got his Air Jordans on. He still looks like he's got his black and red outfit. It's him. It's all of it. Every like shot is just like really highly stylized, but like it's not style over substance. Like the writing is on like is so fluid. If you thought the other film had a lot of spider people in, this one is even more so. And it really leans on that in the sense that the whole story is about what happens to all the other Spider-Verses and to people, and to the point where one of the main characters gets introduced as the leader of like the Spider Society type of thing.
The Council of Ricks.
It's like almost like the Council of Ricks because they look after the multiverses. So but you'd think that like it's quite boring, but what's again I'll get into it in spoilers, but the emotional subcontext behind like the decisions halfway through, well, towards the end of the film, is people going against that, like trying to protect it type of thing.
Trying to protect the order.
Yeah, the order, like the order of things, and things should happen in order because then it like helps the continuity of the multiverse type of thing.
So it's not messing with the butterfly effect sort of thing is what they don't want.
Very much so, yeah. That I don't say butterfly effect, but it's like that. To quote Hot Fuzz, like, should they do this for the greater good, or do you
greater good?
Do you save this one person? Type of thing. But this, what I really like it as well is, I don't know, it's just so smartly written, and each character is quite well defined and likable. There isn't really a character in it like, yeah, you can just say Miles would be the most likable character, but it's probably not like, I don't know, each character you probably have a favourite character other than Miles. Like you definitely will, and the new ones they've introduced, you'd be like, oh, that's cool. And each Spider person or Spider Woman or Spider Animal, there's a few which have their own story going on, and it's not too much on one plate. Like there's a few like side plots going on, and you want to know more about that, and then some of them gets resolved a little bit, but some of ones don't, and it seems to just spins the plate really well.
So, but it's not running with too many different storylines that one storyline just gets disappeared, and it gets too muddled. You don't really know what's going on or who's who.
No, it's quite the opposite. Like each of the like subplots seem to, like a good like story, like well-written story, they seem to converge to the main theme type of thing, and that's what's good. If in good writing, if all little stories can hint towards the bigger picture, that's fucking ideal, isn't it? And that's what this really seems to do.
I must admit, the first one, which is called Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I never went to see that one at the cinema, and I think you mentioned at the beginning of the episode there that not many people saw it in the cinema, but once it hit streaming, it really like found its footing, and people went absolutely mad for it. And I think I would definitely fall into that category. Now, I'm not, as frequent listeners should know, I'm not a big Marvel fan or Disney fan like Mikey is. But I can seriously appreciate what they did with Into the Spider-Verse, just the comic book style, the way that they did that and created this sort of new sort of animation for us to enjoy. I was blown away by the dedication to that, and that's what intrigued me before anything else. But then seeing the film itself, I was like, oh shit, this is actually pretty good. I don't know if I could tell Mikey that I like this. Because it was a solid film. Like, it was written so well. It was really well done. And I didn't have a doubt in my mind that this new one would be worse. If anything, it'd be better, or at the very least as good. obviously I haven't seen it yet, but the way you've spoken about it, the reviews I've seen of it from other sites, it's really good. It's hit the ground running again. But fortunately, this time round, it's got the numbers in the cinemas. It's got the bums on the seats, so it's getting that cinema revenue rather than the streaming revenue, as it were.
And apparently, you beat Mario in its first box office weekend, because obviously came out last Friday, as of day recording this, and as much as I was not really keen on Mario, it's a big franchise, big IP there. So just for it to beat Mario is a big deal. I think it beat box office to box office, as in opening weekend to opening weekend type thing. But this new one is honestly, people have been describing it as The Empire Strikes Back, as in it's bigger, it's better, it's longer, it's there's more. Everything you like, there's just more of, and I couldn't agree more. I just think the only thing I disliked about it was it leaves you wanting more, as in the way it ends. But this is I don't know. I'll leave it for spoilers, but
does it end in? Obviously, we're going to the spoilers, but you say you're disappointed that it ends and you want more. But you're disappointed in the fact that you won't get more, or disappointed in the fact that you've got to now wait a long time until you get more? Does it leave you on that cliff edge where you're or cliffhanger, should I say, where a third one's coming? Because nobody knew a second one was coming, did they? They thought that the Into the Spider-Verse would be its own standalone. It was never really thought of as having a sequel.
Didn't answer for a sequel for a bit, did you, as you say? But this one, for what it's worth, it's a double-edged sword. The ending of this is so smart. There's a cool twist, and the way it happens is quite subtle, but really cool. And then it ends, and you're what? But literally everybody, it's been everywhere in the internet this week after its opening weekend. Literally, I think it was came out Monday. The next one comes out next March.
Oh, that's a quick turnaround.
But it's because
they've been working on it simultaneously.
Yeah, it's they've been animating or recording it back to back. Must have been, because I imagine from the last one to now, it was 5 years gap.
Yeah.
Where because they were so confident, like we said, don't get me wrong, in grand scheme of things, $100 million is a lot of budget, and that's how much this was to make. But but also in the bigger picture, it's actually not that much for films nowadays. For a big film to be usually a successful film, how much they put into it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they've already made the money back the opening weekend.
Well, think of it this way: they don't have to go on location anywhere. They don't have to pay for flights for people to look after actors when they're in locations. They have to pay for accommodation, for catering. They don't have to pay for those things. It's all in, all in house. So they got those costs that they can cut. So I imagine that's where, the budget's not as high as I suppose most would be.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think, the big thing you have to remember here, the reason it took 5 years with the last one is, I don't know the full maths here, but for argument's sake, it takes them a week to create a minute's worth of footage.
Yeah, it takes forever for animation.
I think I've overestimated that. I think it's a week for 10 seconds of footage,
Exactly. You just appreciate it because the art style is so cool and so different. And even in this one, because they travel to even more multiverses, it's even each multiverse is different upon the last something, and each character is so each Spider person is very different than the last, or very well designed. It brings me on to one of the stronger points of it is honestly that it's very meta. So the first one was meta, but this one's very meta and just very funny. It's one of its stronger suits is that it'll pay a bit of fan service, but it'll be cheeky about it, and it'll just it's just jokes and the jokes always hit it just bang, 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 and it just spot on. Another like, and also it seems to be the idea of family's done really well, and the relationship.
Family.
Yeah, better than a fucking Fast and Furious film, I'll take that for. But the spider people's relationship between them and their father figure, or their actual father, is done really well. Or the spider person and their romantic interest is done well. I know, everything seems to be treated with tact, but like it's not overly soppy either. Between the score and the soundtrack, it's just a lot. Like it's honestly, I remember like I said, what was the Damien Chazelle film? Babylon.
Yes.
I said Babylon was like beautifully chaotic. This is like chaotically cool as fuck. This film. It doesn't feel. It's like a 2-hour odd film, and it just does not feel like that at all. I didn't want to go for a piss. Didn't want to leave either. I was ready to piss myself. Like it was like boom, boom, boom.
Do or die, baby.
Yeah.
I must admit, like I'm not big on R&B music. You know, I can appreciate some, but it was quite a heavy. You know, that was quite a heavy theme in the original one, like music wise, and I really did not dislike the score. Like I really enjoyed the score. Like it completely fit the film. The tone and everything was absolutely on point. And at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking for. You know, even if it's not something that I would necessarily listen to or, you know, go out of my way, if something fits the mold of something of the story it's trying to tell, and it does it so seamlessly that I don't even realize, you know, I've been tricked into listening to it or whatever, you know, then I can really appreciate that, you know, it's hit what it needed to hit. It did what it needed to do. And that's what Into the Spider-Verse did for me. You know, it's Marvel. It's not something I'm keen on. Spider-Man, yes, well, Spider-Man's cool, but you know, how many other fucking Spider-Mans have we had? R&B is not really my thing. I've never really read comic books. I've maybe looked at one or two or something. But all of those things combined into a film format, and I could really appreciate what they created, and I could only understand how much bigger and better it's gone this second time round. And it's a testament as well in a way, because you know that meme where they draw the horse.
Yeah, that's what I've seen.
And the horse is drawn so well, and then it's drawn like shit, like towards the end or at the beginning or whatever. And it's like, you know, it got Spider-Man is it Cross the Spider-Verse?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
right, that's the new one. And then you got Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and like the horse is drawn perfectly. And then on the back end is Quantum Mania, and I was like, hold on a minute, why has Quantum Mania got so much shit here? I thought Mikey gave this our highest rated badge. I thought Mikey thought this was top tier. This is something you should go and see in the cinema. And then guess what I saw? Fucking Modark. Is that what he's called?
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, he's absolutely great. Like he's one of like the.
What the fuck is that? That CGI like that. When you were on about a big head, and I mentioned something about Fallout 4 or something, if I recall, you were like, "Oh yeah, it's like this head in this big tank thing," and I literally saw some like evidence of it, and I was like, "What the fuck is this shit?"
Yeah, it's gold. It's just so funny and weird. Like
I was like, I can't trust Mikey's opinion again if he thought this was good.
you're just taking it on the CGI, though, aren't you? Like you're not taking it on like the funny like face like ironically face value of it.
I don't need to. I see that, and I'm like, that's shit, mate. That's to do that. You don't take it serious yourself as the filmmaker. Like you knew this was gonna be shit, so you just went with it. Like there are a million other ways that it could have been done to have made it work better.
No, but like this is what I'm saying is like it's meant to be grotesque and weird and fucked up. Like that's why it's funny. That's why it's weird, because his head's like looks out of place. It's superimposed.
Yeah, they could have done it less cartoony though. They could have done it more.
Why would they know? Because Modark is like that. If you like, even you look him in the comics, like his face is stretched, and like he's not like.
Well, then do it like the High Evolutionary in Guardians. You know, stretch his face over his own face, like something. I don't know.
He's like a big head on like little robotic arms. He's not just like a human with a stretched face.
Oh, whatever. I so that's your area of expertise. I don't know, but as soon as I saw that, I was like, I can't believe Mikey recommended this to our audience. But,
No, I'll stand up.
You still stand by it? Okay, whatever. But you must admit, it's nowhere near as good as Guardians then, or Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I admit that fully. But like, if I was to compare them, I'd put that like at the bottom of the earth, like compared to those three. But if I stand by saying if you like the other Ant-Man films, like you like that one, and it's just that one is just I don't know. Jonathan Majors is good in it, is that Anna?
Well, he's not been officially acquitted, but it's all come out that everything that was said was lies, and it was him that called 999 because his partner was abusing him, and like that's been reported now as the truth because she's not rescinded, but she's retracted or whatever, like her statements and stuff. And everyone's like, oh, it's covering up or whatever, but all these people come forward saying that no, he was the one that was the victim and stuff. So all these people coming forward saying, oh yeah, he's the abuser, they're all the victim, but because he never had chance, to prove his guilt, he's already been cancelled as such. They used to say innocent till proven guilty, but now it's guilty till proven innocent. So I feel bad for him because we did like him, we did really appreciate his work, and then all of a sudden all that stuff went out. We were like, oh no, we backed the wrong horse.
I still do, I still do. I just thought all I said was it weren't looking good for him, and yeah, it hasn't looked good for him.
No, it hasn't looked good, but
whether he's done, like we said at the time, we weren't there. I haven't got a judgment of the fact. I'm not a copper or whatever.
Yeah, we're not judge and jury. Yeah.
That all being said, he's got a film coming out in like summertime before we go off full track, called Magazine Dreams, where he plays a bodybuilder.
Well, his body's already there.
Which sounds quite interesting because the guy's a bit of a beast. But no, we've
Across the Spider-Verse, yeah.
How did Spider-Verse do at the box office? It's made $384.3 million US.
I mean, it's nothing to me unless I have something to compare it against.
Which is that's Into the Spider-Verse. That's 384. Fucking Google's lying to me. It's gonna make it really quick. I don't know. It's just great. And what I like about it as well is that the twists in it and the main plot is, I've watched plenty of films. I can, I know plot. I can watch plots. It's very rarely the film can confuse me or whatever. But like, what I like about it is that you could get a kid you could take a kid to watch this and appreciate and understand it. You could take like a kid over the age of like 9 and they'd understand this, and they wouldn't appreciate like every meta joke or all the multiverse things, but like, they'd understand like all of it, as in like they'd understand the crux.
But would they appreciate the art style though? Because do kids these days even read comics? I imagine everything's online now, so they're not going to a comic book store or whatever and flicking through comics and that. And how accessible are online comics and stuff?
Even a lot of people just like read online comics. I don't like reading comics like that, but like, but at the same time, like, something doesn't have to be like, you don't have to read the comic book to appreciate the art style. Or if when you're a kid, like you just say, oh, that looks cool, and that like, even me, like, I read quite a few comics, but even me, I can just think that does look cool, and that's I think that the whole like, not to sound like it like childish, but the whole vibe is good. The whole like all the themes, like Kieran said about the music is like outstanding. Like I listened to the whole album when I was in the gym earlier on. Like the rap album is very much like, I think they got one producer to produce all of it, and they had like different stars jump on it and different rappers. But that's great. What I like about it is it's Miles' film, but it's like a good ensemble of different Spider people. And the voice cast, as you'd appreciate and like guess, is absolutely stellar. Like a really like random, apart from obviously Miles and Haley, like Shamik Moore, who plays Miles, and Haley Steinfeld, who plays Gwen. Jake Johnson's in it again as Peter B. Parker. They're all great, but the addition of like no real surprise because he's great in everything, of Oscar Isaac playing Miguel O'Hara, like Spider-Man 2099, he like brings a certain intensity to like, the film, which is really good. But he also plays the straight man from the deadpan for a lot of the jokes, which is really good. It's honest, yeah, he's really good, and the way it ends is quite questionable for his character in the next one.
Oh, has he turned heel or something?
Yeah, something like that. But also, like, is he just misunderstood? It's honestly probably even if like you include Endgame, you include I don't know Spider-Man: No Way Home, you include Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, you include like Captain America: Civil War. I'll probably say it's one of my favourite superhero films. Yeah, like top 5 superhero films of the last 10 years either.
Past 10 years.
Past 10 years easy. Yeah.
Okay. So Dark Knight doesn't come into factor then.
Well, I'd put it like in me personally, I'll put it in the same league as Dark Knight, but like for like totally different reasons. As much as I like Dark Knight, I'd also say there's only real like I've watched Dark Knight probably like 6 times, probably like 10 times or whatever. I don't know, like a lot of people have watched countless times.
Is that it? I've watched it at least 50 times.
There's only like a few moments in it where it's actually quite emotional.
As in the Dark Knight.
Yeah, there's Rachel's dead. There's Harvey in the hospital. Like, what else is there?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about it. There's not really any upset. Actually, I suppose when Harvey dying is a bit upsetting, I think.
Yeah, towards the end when Harvey dies is a bit upsetting, but like there's not.
You know, there's emotional moments, but there's not tear-jerking moments. I think that's probably what you're saying.
No, I think to like Dark Knight's Returns, the whole film is like a thriller, like kind of a thriller, and it builds up suspense. It's good at building suspense, but like with obviously I know they're totally different, but Spider-Man across the Spider-Verse, like it is a lot more. There's more emotional beats. There might be a few moments where you cry. Maybe I wouldn't cry, but there's more like family moments. There's more emotional connections, more emotional beats.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree because I mean, in the first one, Into the Spider-Verse, I can't remember the bit now. I've only seen it once, but there was a bit, and I actually do remember. Was there a tear? I don't know if there was a tear, but there was a moment where I was really feeling quite upset, and I must admit I didn't feel like that watching The Dark Knight, like you say. But it's you can't compare them. They're two completely different films. The only thing that links them is the fact they're superhero films.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only thing that linked me. But you asked me about like, how would it go with The Dark Knight? But now you go with that. My other like before I go into spoilers, and this like would lead to quite segue into spoilers quite well. One of its stronger points is in like multiverse things and like parallel universe things, they like to play on, if this character's doing this in that universe, what are they doing in this universe? How are they different? So I'm honestly trying to think of an example here, but like, you know, in the Batman comics, in Flashpoint, it's not Bruce who, well, this is spoilers for like the Flash, who's probably coming out because I know they're kind of doing this, but Bruce dies in the alley instead of Martha, and Thomas becomes a version of the Batman, and he's just absolutely ruthless and just uses guns and shoots people in the head or whatever. I think I've mentioned this before. And then Martha becomes the Joker. It usually plays on different things.
Martha becomes the Joker.
Martha becomes the Joker in Batman Flashpoint. Or sorry, Flashpoint.
Oh, if only Snyder could have gone ahead and then we were seeing what's the face? Lauren Cohen as the Joker and Jeffrey D. Morgan as Batman. Oh man, that'd have been sick.
Wouldn't surprise me if that's like, because I hope not to get too sidetracked in an upcoming episode, but like I hope to God they need like me and you always like, especially you always going on about like a grumpy old man. With like trailers, they like splooge their load too quickly, and I hope.
Oh yeah.
In the Flash film, maybe they have got like Jeffrey D. Morgan as Thomas Wayne, because they've seemed to like show their entire like deck full of cards they have on their hand.
Apparently, the post-credit scene is meant to be something really interesting that sets up like the new sort of DCU, as it were.
Yeah, because they've got rid of the DCU kind of, because it's now James Gunn owns it. As I was saying, I like in this as well as other Universal things, they seem to play around with your expectations of what that character would do in a different universe. So within the first 5 minutes the Peter from another universe. You find out that his fate, and it was alluded to in the last film, but you actually find out what happened. And I'm like, I watched it with my friends, and I made quite an inappropriate joke after when you find out what he was doing. But that is cool. And that also like goes into one of the cliffhangers. Well, one of the main cliffhangers, which makes it so good. But again, you want more. Also, very like low key spoilers. There's no post credit scene in this one because it's such a cliffhanger. Like it doesn't want to give you any more. Like
Yeah, it doesn't need to, does it?
no.
Plus, in a way, it's its own entity. It doesn't need what most post credit scenes tend to like big something else up. Like, Thor would big up Iron Man, or Iron Man would big up Captain America, or whatever. That's what the cutscene did. Whereas in Spider-Verse, it's its own thing.
Yeah, well, in the last one, it just hinted towards there being another film, maybe. But in this one, like you say, like in a lot of the MCU in general, like you said, they'd hint towards other characters' films coming up. But there's none of that.
So just before we jump into spoilers, just for my own understanding, is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, is that Sony, or is it MCU or Disney? Like, what's...
It is Sony, but because Sony and the MCU have a deal, it's like, Sony own Spider-Man, like you say, but Peter's also in the MCU, as in like Tom Holland's in the MCU, and so were the other like films. But without getting into like spoilers, these are Easter eggs alluding to the MCU.
Ah, so it's aware that it's in that universe.
Yeah, there's literally like, there's a very niche reference, and you think if you hadn't watched that film not long ago, you wouldn't understand one of the references at all. But like, it's quite good. Like,
right, well, spoilers then. Are you ready? Am I ready? That's the question. Am I ready to hear?
Before we get into juicy spoilers, we'd like to take a moment to thank you for listening to us and to help us further our aspirations. We would forever appreciate it. And if you would like to subscribe to us, follow us, and join your preferred platforms, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Instagram with our handle ScreenHour. And if you'd like to participate in an episode, leave your thoughts on what you'd like to see us cover next. That'll be ideal. Now time for spoilers. You have been warned. They're coming up. First like half hour, you don't even see Miles. First like half hour, it's mostly Gwen. And it's Gwen having adventures in her own self, and it shows her origin story. And her origin story, like, she's like in a band or whatever, and she's already like Spider-Gwen at this point. And you see Peter, and you're like, oh, it's Peter in their universe. Yeah, like he's getting battered by this school bully, and like you see like Gwen kind of like stick up for him.
It's not Flash, is it?
I think it's that again. That's another quite funny thing about it. It's not Flash, it's Ned, who's obviously Peter's friend in the MCU, who is one of Peter's friends usually. But in like that universe, Ned's bullying him. The funny like mad thing which they do in this is not, and I made the inappropriate joke, is Peter's getting terrored. So do you know it's Professor Connors who usually becomes the lizard?
Yeah.
It's Peter in this one. And he takes this lizard. You see him like call for the school dance, and so, like as a lizard, and try and kill like the bully. And I says to Dan, I was like, Peter's a school shooter in this one. I was like, what the hell? Like, and it's just a bully kid, and he just like takes it too far, like, and he tries to kill the bully, the bully at the prom, and then Spider-Gwen like rescues the other kids, fights Peter, and accidentally like, spoilers, kills him. So like that's her like origin story, and also.
What, Peter kills him?
No, not the bully. Spider-Gwen kills Peter by accident, like when she's fighting him.
Whoa.
Because she doesn't know he's the lizard, like she's just like defending these other kids. So she just like kills him by accident. Like a bit like the Hulk. She batters him and he turns into normal Peter. And like you would, and like when you've got best friends / like partners or whatever, the parent gets quite close to like, the friend or like, the boyfriend or whatever. So Spider-Gwen's dad's there, who's obviously Captain Gwen's, like Captain, I don't know, I can't remember his name.
Captain Stacy.
Captain Stacy. I don't even think he has a first name. I think it's just Captain. So he sees Spider-Gwen next to a dead Peter, and for ages he just thinks, as you would, put one and one together, but he gets free. He thinks Spider-Gwen killed Peter, and like, even though it's his daughter, one dynamic which is quite good, and that's like a good story beat they discover. That all happens within the first like 15-20 minutes, and it's done like I cannot applaud this film enough to tell you there's so much which goes on, but you take it all in and it's beautiful and it's really good. Do you know what he says? Like, you asked about is like, is it in the MCU? There's like hints towards the MCU in it. So Donald Glover, who's obviously inspired the Miles Morales character, and like stuff like that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. He, if you remember, he's in Spider-Man Homecoming as Aaron Davis, the Prowler, and he's in this as the Prowler. He's in, but like when I mean as the Prowler, he's the only person, as in the only live-action person in the entire film. He's just as Donald Glover. He's not animated. He's just Donald Glover.
Oh, so it's a bit like Looney Tunes back in action type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like one cool cameo. There's like a really cool cameo where you see the Spider-Man pointing meme, but like that happens on a grand scale where like Spider-Man 2099 is like the head of the Spider-Man society, and they need to make sure in people's events certain things happen, like continuity and they call them canon events, as in like, you know, part of the canon. And it happens in each Spider-Man like universe and journey. They have to have canon events. So an Uncle Ben or like and a Captain Stacy has to die for that Spider-Man to learn, spoilers, with great power comes great responsibility. And he found out that it would start like towards like this end of the second act, Miles helps save the Indian Peter Parker. Like, I can't remember his name, but the Indian Spider-Man helps save his uncle, like his Captain Singh or his Mary Jane, I think his love interest. Because he does that, he stops the cannon point, which would have been someone he loves, the Asian Spider-Man, like the Indian Spider-Man's loved one dying. So he doesn't learn that lesson, and because of that, like his universe is imploding type of thing. So they're trying to fix that. And Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, the Oscar Isaac character, is the head of that. And he's turned around and says, you can't, you've got to stop doing that. Like, you're fucking with the time-space continuum type of thing. You're fucking with the multiverses. And he says, you know, in each universe, a captain, like a police captain, dies or whatever, or such and such dies, and then it clicks to Miles. His dad is about to be sworn in as captain. So, like, you know, when you, as opposed to like a normal job, when you're a policeman, especially in America, I think you get sworn. Like, you've applied for the job, you've been told you've got it, you've been promoted, and then you get sworn in, as it's like a ceremony, like. So that's about to happen to Miles' dad. So Miles legs it, and like obviously fights them all or whatever, and that's how like again I said I wasn't going to explain the jokes too much, but they turn around and be like, get Spider-Man, and they go, which one? And it's all them just pointing at each other.
Miles' dad also reminds me of the police officer from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
It's because the way he's animated, like, and he's just like, how often, yeah. But no, he's good. He's good in it. Miles' dad's like a really good actor. He's the I'm going to struggle to pronounce the name. So, but his Alfie from Atlanta, his Bry T. Henry. I'll tell you who he is, which you might remember. You know, Aaron Taylor Johnson's like
yeah. He plays
partner in crime, Tangerine.
That's it.
Yeah, he's great. Like, Sandrine's like really good and stuff. And everything I've ever saw him in, Brian.
He plays the dad.
He plays the dad. He plays dad in the first one, is that? Brian T. Henry, yeah.
The dad's voice sounds so old, though.
Oh, yeah, I haven't even touched on as well. Like, oh, he's good, though. He's just a good actor. What's really cool about it is the villain is introduced as a they call him villain of the week. Spot, and he's like, his power is interdimensional, like creating black holes and stuff, and he's just over him. And he like is a bit of a joke at first, but just throughout art design and good voice acting and like, you know, just spoilers, just general good filmmaking and like sound design and score, he turns into a creepy badass like villain. Like from the start of the film towards the end, like the villain's like is recognizable, but not like as in, I don't know, like strength and like intensity and like how scary he is. So that's really good. Between the Spot and Miguel O'Hara being like the misunderstood character, because also Miguel O'Hara's like, for some reason, I kind of know, I know a little bit about him, but like he's a vampire in it as well, which is a bit random. But like they touch on that like very ever so slightly. There's like a really cool like Spider Woman in it who's got like a motorbike and she's like pregnant and she's like cool as fuck. But there's like so many like.
I think the real shout out has to go to the one and only, and he is literally the one and only J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, J.K. Simmons plays J. Jonah Jameson, and Mahershala Ali, spoilers, is in it as Prowler, and that's like a very like sizzle reel thing at the end. But no, it's to give you some sort of like idea, you know. It's got 95% on Rotten Tomatoes and it's 9.1 on IMDb as well. So don't just take like my very good word for it. Which Kieran's tried to like undermine my word because I said that man's quite good. It's near perfect. It's honestly as close as you can to get to a perfect film. Another way I'd describe it is Back to the Future Part 2 in the sense that it's really good and it's really good. It ends because Part 2 ends on a cliffhanger, doesn't it? Yeah, Part 2 is to a point where it's a really good film, but it ends on a cliffhanger, and the only bad thing about it is you want more of it. That's the way I'd describe it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it, but I would agree with you that it would be our green badge. It would be our top tier. You just can tell that it's gonna be good.
Another reason I give it a green badge, and I'll give it a green badge, even if I thought it is a yellow one, and that sounds like contradictory, but it's because I think for the longest time, and even like up until recently, animation was thought just to be for kids. It wasn't supported as it should be, or like it wasn't given the push. If more people go out and see it in the cinemas, the more like, don't get me wrong, like Across the Spider-Verse is its own film because it's so good, but that more people give animation its go, and like give it, I don't know, put it on like the pedestal it deserves.
What's good as well lately is that cinema seems to be picking back up again, thanks to lockdown and all of that shit that went down. The cinema was just basically dead. Then we have Maverick that really helped bring cinema back. To be honest, everyone wanted to go see that film, and then it's slowly been trudging along for the past year. Because as like you sent me a message saying, "Can you believe it's been a year since we saw Maverick?" And I was like, "Can you believe I've seen it over 5,000 times?" But you know, it's good that cinema all of a sudden, especially this year, this past couple of months, there's been more frequently good films, you know, really solid, well done films where there's been like passable ones and the occasional like really good one, but now it really feels like, oh, cinema's coming back, baby.
I don't know. It seems to be a lot of good films that come out recently. Like
maybe it's just the thing of when they were writing films back in lockdown, maybe the mental state of the writer wasn't right or whatever, and things just weren't. It just wasn't feeling it. But now, sort of, the world's back open, and despite economical bullshit, you're out and about seeing your friends and stuff. So your sort of mental state is in a better place, I guess. So maybe it's easier to write a story. I know I'm trying to clutch at feathers here, but
speaking of writers, pay writers more. Screen Actors Guild run strike in Hollywood. I know we're in Britain, but you know, Hollywood to Hollywood.
SAG, baby, get saggy.
Screen Actors Guild, because at the end of the day, they're working on big Hollywood films or big Hollywood like TV shows.
I only pay him if it's good. That's what I say. We don't want mediocrity, mate.
Writers can't go to the award ceremonies on their like TV shows they've written because they can't afford to get there or can't afford to buy a suit, despite their TV show or film being up for an award and it's critically acclaimed or done really well commercially. They're just not getting paid they should. Not to get too political, but if you've listened to this, you probably already know about the Screen Actors Guild, and chances are you're not a Hollywood executive listening to this. But if you are,
Pay us instead.
But no, Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse is fucking great. And we're saying about like other films coming out, like we said about it's only getting better. It's like it's so true, just like the proof of being putty when he's getting better. But between the next month, or so, probably a month and a half, there's like Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Yeah, baby.
There's Oppenheimer, Barbie, and to be fair, across the board, it's just like been like given out like 7 out of 10. But The Flash, like I'll be interested to see what that's like, even if I can just talk hero like Ezra Miller and put him in his place, the absolute delinquent. But no, there's like some good stuff coming up.
I've not been excited to see a film since Tenet, and it didn't quite live up to my hype, and I haven't had that hype since. But I'm really hyped for Dead Reckoning.
That's wrong. I'll tell you, you're lying there because Tenet was before Top Gun Maverick, so you're lying there.
No, because I wasn't excited for Top Gun Maverick.
What wasn't you excited for Top Gun Maverick?
Because I didn't really know how good it was going to be, so I really had limited expectations. All my excitement was after seeing it. So, yeah. So I was waiting for you to call me out on that. But yeah, it's I wasn't actually that hyped to see that. I was like excited sort of thing, like, oh, I do want to see it. But the pure excitement, adrenaline I got coursing through me for Dead Reckoning is, yeah. And I'm a big Nolan fan, so move over Oppenheimer. Dead Reckoning's taking the spot. But I'm definitely intrigued to see Oppenheimer for sure.
To piggyback off that point, I'll be surprised unless Oppenheimer really lives up to its expectations. As expectations go, and they really paid off. Is Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse had a lot of high expectations, and it smashed it.
Yeah.
Like, it really did. So, yeah, those are all my thoughts on that.
I do want to watch it, but I'm just trying to find the time and the money.
Suggest a moment.
Go for picks of the week.
Mine would be probably Succession at the moment, because I'm catching up on that. I know it's finished. Me and Charlotte have been watching like an episode of that like every night because it's so good, and I'm probably preaching to the choir because maybe a couple of people listening, dare I say, have probably know it's all over now. It's all over now, and the finale's happened. So every episode of Succession keeps you guessing. It's really intense. The writing's like smart. It's like brutal, as in like some of the insults are incredibly funny and creative. There's quite a big twist in like halfway through season 4, which is really good. So yeah, and also like I've said it before. I think I've probably said it about Succession. I don't know, but like what's really refreshing about it is that you don't like any of the characters, but all the characters are interesting. As in like you're not rooting for them. You don't physically like them. Go on, go down and have a drink with one. But they're all captivating. But yeah, Succession is my like pick of the week. A twist at the very closing moments of like episode 4 is quite cool.
For myself, a bit of a double whammy in a way. I started watching Guy Ritchie's The Covenant last night. I'm going to watch the other half tonight. And
what, you split it in half? Are you that busy like nowadays?
Yeah, because I was too busy because I had to go to bed early to be in bed by 10 to wake up for 4. So yeah, so I was like, oh, I'll watch half now and then I'll watch the other half tomorrow. I was kind of like, oh, I'll watch the rest of it. And then it got to 10 and I'm like, no, I really need to sleep because I'm going to be absolutely dead tomorrow. But I would have kept watching it if that weren't the case. But I'm really intrigued by it at the moment and interested to see where it goes. Like, as I say a million times before, I don't like to watch trailers if I can help it. I'd just like to go in blind and see what happens. and I did that with this, and it's really completely different to what I thought it was going to be. I don't quite know what to compare it to. Maybe, is it called The Triple Frontier or Triple Front or something like that? You got Oscar Isaac, Ben Affleck.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's Super Frontier. That is.
Triple Frontier.
That's quite a good. Yeah, that's quite a good film in its own right. But like,
that's not a bad one. But that one's more about them basically like robbing a drug lord and taking the money for themselves as private contractors type of thing. But the sort of the style and like the era of military sort of thing is like of that time, kind of got that vibe going through it, but it's completely different because it's set in Afghanistan, or is it Iraq? I think it's Afghanistan. And they have Jake Gyllenhaal's got a whole team with him, and they have an interpreter who's an Afghan. And turns out this Afghan is someone that you should trust, because he knows the locals, he knows all of this information, and then it comes to a moment where Jake Gyllenhaal needs to put his life on the line and like in the hands of the Afghan, and it's what the adversity the Afghan goes through to look after him. I won't say more than that because I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a completely different story to what I thought it was going to be, and it's the Afghan character. It's such a compelling storyline. I'm so invested, and I want to see what happens and where it goes. And I sort of know something about where it's going next, but I don't want to say at the moment because I know it's something Mike wants to look at. But with that being said, Guy Ritchie, he's having his fucking run of films at the moment. You know, he recently released Duration Fortune. He's just released The Covenant, and then he's got something about the Gentlemanly Art of Warfare or something like that coming out next year.
Yeah, it's got Henry Cavill in, is it? And somebody.
Henry Cavill and Alan Ritchson and that lot. I'm not a big Guy Ritchie guy. Not a big Guy Ritchie guy. But his work, like I've been, because he's really throwing it out consistently. And they say like the more you keep doing this, doing that, and doing it, and keep moving forward, you'll get better. But if you just keep working on one product for years and years and years, you'll never actually get any better, sort of thing. And I am starting to see Guy Ritchie's art form and his style of work, and I do appreciate it a lot more than I used to. Like, I could enjoy his films, but now I appreciate his art style, and you know how people take the piss about how he sort of writes things, and he's like, "All right, boys, what we're gonna do? Pop up the boozer, then we'll go get."
I've always liked that though. I've always like. I just thought it was so wilder.
Yeah, so people take the mick out of it, and I wouldn't have said it's like my favourite, but I've really started to understand and appreciate it more so now. And it's sort of like the way he does those cuts and makes it quite quick. It kind of feels a bit like Edgar Wright in a way, but on a different level. Not like a better level, but they're like two separate, but they've kind of got the same sort of vibe there. How they do the quick pacings of moments as they build sort of something up, and then they let it play out. That brings me to in what limited spare time I have, just so I can get some PlayStation gaming in me, is I've started replaying the Wolfenstein series. And the Wolfenstein series is basically if the Nazis had won the war, and that sort of really intrigues me. It's also like the show The Man in the High Castle, which I didn't finish watching that. I only watched like 2 seasons, and it kind of got a bit drab. But I'm really invested in that sort of like, you know, what if the Nazis had won and how the world turned out. Like I find that a weird sort of different perspective to look at. And this film is this gaming series is very much like that. And I've started playing Wolfenstein: The New Order, which is like, that's not the original one, but it's like the newer ones of the original of the newest ones, if that makes sense. Like a reboot, if you want to call it.
Is it Youngblood? Is it Wolfenstein Youngblood or something? Is it?
No, that's so. Yeah, it's fucking confusing. So you got Wolfenstein: The New Order, then you got Wolfenstein Youngblood, which is actually a prequel, but it came out later. Then you got Wolfenstein New Colossus, and then you got Wolfenstein Youngblood. So I'm going to go through them all and play them all because they're all free on PlayStation Plus Extra. But Wolfenstein New Order, I played that back when it came out, but I forgot how similar it is to Guy Ritchie's style. Like, you have to play it to understand it, and you're like, oh my god, like this is literally Guy Ritchie's style. but it's really interesting and really really well done. So if no one's ever played the Wolfenstein series, or if you're intrigued about what would have happened if the Nazis won the war, and it's now set in 1960, and the war finished, well, arguably finished in 45, but it didn't, because the war was won, by the Nazis. And how did the world turn out, and why are we somehow more technologically advanced in some areas? Why have we already got the solar base on the moon? How does that work? We didn't land on the moon until 1968 in the real world, but in this world it's the 1960 and we're on the moon. Why was the Nazis so technologically advanced compared? It's a really interesting thing to get your head in, and it's got that Guy Ritchie sort of stamp on it as well. It's really interesting. So I just thought, I'd throw that in. So I think Operation Fortune, I think you got to give that a watch, because it's absolute baller of a laugh. It's a good time, and it's literally the best performance I've ever seen Hugh Grant give. It's so good. The Covenant, I say I've got half of it to go, but I think that's a really solid film so far, and I will recommend it from what I've seen so far. I look forward to seeing the rest of it, and then give the Wolfenstein series a go. I've played all of them. I'm just going to play them all again now, just because.
I don't know, I couldn't get into the Wolfenstein games. I played one ages ago. I thought it was too slow. I thought the mechanics were too clunky. Couldn't even get past the first hour. I found it too slow. I've heard I really want to watch the Covenant. I think I saw the trailer for it ages ago, and it really intrigued me. But I didn't know really recently it came onto Amazon Prime, and it's included on Prime as in actual Amazon Prime, which is great. So now I'm looking forward to watching that myself.
Yeah, I think he's got a deal. I think you said he must have a deal with Amazon or something where they've given him so much money and for individual projects, and they just said, just go make shit and give it to us so we can put it out.
It must be Amazon Studios, or they must have backed him in some way, because they could his films are coming on there incredibly quick.
Yeah, I know, he's gonna have 3 films in 2 years, and it's how'd you do that? You mad bastard, take a break.
But no, that's the episode. So thank you always for listening. I literally said looking then.
Yeah, for looking at us.
It's greatly appreciated. Give us a share, like it on YouTube, do as much as you can, and it is always appreciated. But yeah, take it easy.
Yeah, and as Mikey says, give Across the Spider-Verse a watch in the cinemas.
Yeah, go see it in the cinemas. You won't regret it. I promise you that. It's a Mikey promise.
A Mikey promise. What does that mean? Nothing. Anyway. Anyway, we will catch you in the next one.
Goodbye.
Bye.